Hey guys, Creator Mom. So I've been listening to a lot of Neville Goddess's videos, Maggie Murphy, and it's funny because as I'm going through some of her videos, I'm getting answers to questions that I've had. It's so funny how like you ask God a question and then the answer can come from anywhere, basically, or from within you or from something you hear. But because I had been telling a friend about my car, woes, and then like not long after, she like the next day or something like that, she was like, oh yeah, I see that I have an oil leak. And I'm just like, it made me think. I was like, oh my God, I wonder if we could spread situations to each other. And some may laugh at that and think, oh, you're just being silly, like that's superstitious or something. But no, I thought, man, is there something to this? That's why, well, anyways, I ran across this video by Neville Goddess, and she was talking about watch out for states that you may fall into unknowingly. And she gives this example about her close friend who was going through a situation at work, and she found herself over empathizing with him, right? Made me think about empathy, because what do you do when you empathize? You put yourself in that, you try at least to put yourself in that person's shoes. You feel what they feel in that situation. You're feeling it with them, as if you were in that situation. That is what it means to put yourself in another state. That's what like Neville Goddard means when he says he's saying empathize. He's saying empathize with your desired state. Empathize with the end that you desire. Put yourself in that feeling state of having, feeling what you would feel had you had that situation. And a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do that. I don't know what it'd be like to have that situation. Well, if you're listening to a friend and you're empathizing with their negative situation and you put yourself into their feeling state, but you're not experiencing that situation, you're not going through it, but somehow we just always find it easier to empathize with a negative situation. We find it easier for ourselves to slip into negative feeling states. I just don't know why. Like, it's just that older brother trying to, I don't know, whatever. So yeah, she was saying how like she almost over empathized with him, so much so that she put herself into that state of having that problem, and she saw that problem crop up in her own life, like, but she didn't realize it was going on until 2020 hindsight, until like after the fact she realized, whoa, that's crazy. So I was like, she answered my question about what I was thinking just the other day. And mind you, this video I was watching was old. It was from like 4 years ago or something. But time is not a matter. It's not a thing in the spirit, I was asking a question. My question was answered 4 years ago, It's funny. But, yeah, over empathizing. That's why it's good when we're listening to people's problems and we want to be empathetic to our loved ones and our friends, but we have to remain neutrally empathic. Does that make sense? That should be a term. Remain neutrally empathic, meaning, sure, relate with them, but don't put yourself in their complete state and shoes. I think I've experienced that. I mean, it's hard though, because it's like when you classify yourself as like a prayer warrior or an intercessor, that's pretty much what you kind of like do. You put yourself in that person's feeling state, or at least you try to. I remember when I found out this couple's son had, died by suicide. I was like, I felt so much for them, and I remember feeling what it must feel like, or trying to put myself in the mom's body, almost feeling state, and I started crying and weeping for her, right? And kind of like praying for her, but I don't know. I'm like, maybe that's not completely healthy, I don't know. Maybe we can pray and intercede for people without necessarily having to go so deep or all in, We have to maintain our neutrality and keep our wits about us. But we don't, the thing is, like, we're always so quick, I feel like, to do that with negative situations. But why don't we empathize with desired situations, When somebody is saying a story that you want in your life, or that that you want to take on, empathize with that, take on that state that person is releasing or whatever. I mean, this is why they say, and I think it all goes along the lines of social contagion, I think social contagion is a real thing, like spreading hysteria. We saw it. We saw it in 2020. We saw the spreading of hysteria in 2020. How people can make you believe something about something you can't see. It's all based off trust. And then you see people experiencing what some other people told you that you would experience. And it's almost like, had they not said anything, would all of this have occurred? Who's narrating the story? And are you empathizing and putting yourself in the state of their narration? Because it's always our choice what state we put ourselves into, what we empathize with. I think that this is another dangerous thing, kind of like about social work, case manager burnout, being a therapist. I always thought for a second, well, I'm good at listening to people. I like listening to people. Like, maybe I should be a therapist. And then I'm like, no. I think that I don't know how you can listen to a bunch of clients. You're sitting there and you're taking on all these people's situations. It must be very gifted. You're a gifted person, I think, if you could remain neutral while also, I don't know, like doing therapy with your client, because you can't be totally cold or distant emotionally, I feel like, as a therapist, because I don't think that would make you a good therapist. I think that people like therapy because they feel listened to and cared for, like somebody cares, somebody's actually listening. But from the therapist perspective, it's like, I think that we would have to be careful, or they would have to be careful, to not take on all of these stories into their head. And it's another thing about working in trauma-based services, crisis hotlines. My God, you got to be careful not to let all these horrid stories get inside of your head. Or I don't know, well, that would be resistance, but maybe you hear them and you let it filter and process out. Just, you don't hold on to that state. Because, like, if you're like a sensitive person or just a generally empathic person, I think it would be difficult to listen to these crises and not feel anything. I think you're gonna feel something and it's gonna weigh down on you, but then, like, processing that out of your body and out of your system. But I don't know, man. I mean, imagine doing that line of work for years and you're taking hits and hits and hits and hits. Like, I don't know. Anyways, I'm just babbling on, but I'm sure people find ways to cope. But I always thought I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to be a crisis intervention hotline person. Like, I don't want to be a pastor, because that's another line of work, doing pastoral work. Like, people just want to pull on you and lean on you, and it's hard because it's like too many people. Case management is too many people. I'm like, where do you draw the line, you know? Because, or even like, what is considered too needy? You know, what is considered being too dependent emotionally on other people? Like, finding that balance of like holding our own emotional weight, but also depending on others for emotional support. Like, where is that nice little fine line and balance? Because I think that, apart from me, as kind of like maybe being like more of an avoidant attachment is what I'm learning. And I don't want to like totally claim that over my life, like I'm just going to be that forever. But if I have like avoidant attachment tendencies, like I've noticed thoughts like, I don't know, it's kind of like, what's the point of really looking for and having a friend? Like, it's too dangerous. Like, people are not safe. People are generally untrustworthy. You can't really depend on them. And then the other side to that is, oh, well, what if I'm too needy? What if I'm too dependent and get too dependent on somebody else, and then they disappoint me, or they've done so much for me that I can't do anything for myself? Or I don't know, like all these crazy thoughts that push me back into this wall of like, well, Jesus, after all of that, it's just better just to be alone. You know, it's just better just to like not even venture out into that. But yeah, it's almost like, how do you know you're being too needy or dependent, you know? How do you draw the line between acknowledging that, yes, we need other people to depend on and be in relationship with, but at the same time, we also do need to work on carrying and processing our own emotional weight, and not always putting it off onto other people, but never processing it and dealing with it ourselves too. It's just like the fine balance between independent work and realizing that we're both, like, we're independent and we're also dependent. You know, we can process ourselves, but we can emotionally support ourselves, but we also need emotional support from another or from others. You know, it's just a fact that people thrive better when they feel more supported, when they have a good support system, you know, a healthy one. And I just feel like, you know, it could be challenging to find, but especially if you're avoidant, you know, or like, you know, it could be challenging if you're like a single parent, you know, because you can't just like go out to where the people are. I want to be where the people are. Something. So yeah, can't just get up and go to the group, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not just gonna leave my children to go to the group. Like, that's dangerous. Like, I don't want to do that, you know. So, you know, but there's different seasons. Anyways, I'm done talking about this. But yeah, like, we can empathize, but we have to stay in our own state. We have to stay in our good state that we want in our life. And I think that a lot of us feel pressure to pop out of that state because we have to be concerned with what's going on with everybody else. Like, you know, there's suffering in the world, and you need to be empathic and put your feeling state into that state. Like, no, we're only responsible for our own state of mind. So we have to be good shepherds over that. All right, everyone. Have a good Friday.